Story 1. Note: if you're easily disgusted by nausea, this might not be the story for you. My aunt, we'll call her Karen here, seemed to have an obsession with virtue signaling. Growing up, she loved telling others how better she was than everyone else. Her go-to points for this were being vegan and being Christian. This story is about the latter. For many Christmases, Aunt Karen would make a point to tell me or my dad what bad people we were for not being religious like she was. We never went to church, and my dad never made me take Sunday school. I remember Aunt Karen saying things like, "That's not going to get you to heaven, you know," or, "It's called Christ Mass for a reason. There's no Santa Claus in the Bible." She made snide remarks when my cousins and I watched cartoons with Santa in them. At one point, when I was a little older, she even said something to the effect of, "People who don't celebrate Christmas for anything other than Christ will go to hell." I don't know why my dad kept inviting her over. Something about Christmas makes people think they're obligated to be with toxic people only because they're family. One Christmas Eve, I was already in my moody, rebellious teen years, so I wasn't very merry to begin with. I dreaded having to spend another night with people that couldn't stand each other. Aunt Karen was especially snide this year, making comments like, "You wouldn't be so gloomy if you went to church for once," or, "Kids today need the fear of God to straighten up. Your sins are making him miserable." The last straw was when I heard Karen essentially tell my dad, "Your son will grow up to be a criminal if he's not taught about God and the Bible." I had enough of this lady being a jerk every Christmas, so I hatched a plan to get her out of my dad's house. When I was a kid, I used to be lactose intolerant, but my dad kept a jug of milk in the fridge to go with the Christmas cookies he bought for our relatives. When no one was looking, I drank a glass of milk in the kitchen and carried on like nothing had happened. After a while, I started feeling nauseous, but did my best to hide it. I made sure to stay near Aunt Karen whenever I could. Eventually, I started gagging, and then finally, I let out a projectile of white gunk and stomach acid on Aunt Karen. She screamed in horror about me being a disgusting little brat and how her sparkling red dress was ruined. I pretended to cry and act remorseful, making my other relatives sympathize with me. My dad was frustrated that he had to clean the carpet and sent me to my room. I eavesdropped on Karen lashing out at my dad for getting puked on, and finally, my dad seemed to get the hint that his sister shouldn't have been invited. He told her to leave, so she did with my cousins in tow. I got in trouble for not using the bathroom when I threw up, but I didn't care. Karen made Christmas miserable for me, my dad, and most likely my cousins, her kids, so I decided to return the favor. I thought it'd take this small victory to my grave until I discovered Reddit. Merry Christmas, ya filthy animal. Story 2. I'm not really sure how to navigate this situation. Recently, my fiancé and I were without a home during the transition from selling our house to finding a rental, so we moved in with his mother. While living with her, we put all of our belongings into storage. We originally planned to store our items in one of her empty rooms, but my boyfriend advised against it because he said she and her husband might go through our things. I didn't believe it until it actually happened. So, we finally found our own place, but I wasn't able to fit everything we had into our new home. We moved 8 hours away, and I asked his mother if I could store just a few items in an empty closet in a room she never uses: a chair, a few boxes, a pillow, and a small table. Well, my fiancé's brother was coming into town and offered to bring my things. That's when she admitted she had given my pillow away to their grandmother. Last night, his grandmother called me, and it was incredibly awkward. She basically said I couldn't have the pillow back, even though I spent $50 on it. It was just an uncomfortable conversation. In the end, I told her she could have it, and she eventually gave it back, apparently in tears. I was extremely polite and told her she could keep it. Then, his father told me how selfish and mean I was for taking a pillow from an elderly woman. I was stunned. I thought to myself, you all went through my things without permission, after specifically promising multiple times that wouldn't happen, and now you're accusing me of being the selfish one? Not to mention, They also kept a brand new fan I had bought for $150 and only used once. It had been sitting in the closet and was so covered in dirt and dust that I couldn't take it back. Yet, somehow, I'm the one being called inconsiderate in this whole situation, even though I literally told his grandmother she could have the pillow. I know it had no real value to her, but she still made a big scene over it. She's always asking to keep our things. One time, she even took a random hoodie from my boyfriend, one he was actually wearing at the time. My boyfriend, being the kind-hearted person he is, gave her the hoodie right off his back. She probably just tossed it into a closet somewhere, and the sad part is that he doesn't even have much to begin with. His grandmother is the type of person who has plenty of money, but has never given us a gift, not even once. I don't feel entitled to anyone else's belongings, so it really bothers me when others feel entitled to mine, especially items I was looking forward to using and saving for our new place. These were not cheap items either. His mother keeps reminding us literally the last 3 times she's called that she was in such tears when she gave the pillow back. It feels like she's trying to make me feel guilty for wanting back something that belonged to me and that I paid for. At this point, it's making me question the family I may potentially be marrying into. And get this, the chair I had stored was a vintage piece I found for $75, though it originally retailed for $1,000. It's super delicate, made of acrylic, and I even said, I hope it makes it because it's so fragile. Well, his mother casually let me know that she had been banging it around since it was raining. That honestly made my stomach turn. Then she asked if she could use it in her bathroom, which caught me completely off guard. And today, the day she was supposed to give it back, she asked me what I planned to do with it, as if she had forgotten it wasn't hers in the first place. It's just so upsetting how they act like they're entitled to my belongings. I feel like I've totally learned my lesson. Never put myself in this situation again. Being generous and trusting with your things shouldn't mean they're free for the taking, and it's incredibly disheartening to see how lightly they treat other people's property, especially when it's sentimental or valuable to that person. Story 3. A few years ago, my dad, our pastor, and I were walking to our stands for a hunt we were preparing for. We had just dropped off my brother at his stand, and when we got to mine, everything suddenly took a turn. My dad owns land through his real estate business. We post all the land, putting up no trespassing signs because we continually have trespassers and want to avoid any conflicts or misunderstandings. So we reach my stand, and there is this couple walking their dog. The husband and his wife seemed like the entitled type. They saw us and began to walk away, but my dad and the pastor waved them down. The couple stopped to talk, and my dad calmly explained that this was private property and that they were not allowed to be there. The husband looked around and said, "Well, I don't see any signs up." We had posted signs all along the property line. That response irritated my dad because the husband already had a confrontational attitude. My dad adjusted his shotgun on his shoulder as it was slipping off and stepped a little closer. He asked, "Do you have signs up on your property?" The wife whimpered, No, let's not do this. We're going." She tried to pull her husband along, but he stood his ground. My dad continued, "How about I come over and walk all around your backyard just because I didn't see any signs? Does it stop being private property if there are no signs?" The wife interjected, "We don't need any of that. Let's go." After grumbling and saying a few choice words, the husband finally followed his wife back in the direction they had come from. My dad then helped finish setting me up on my stand, got our pastor settled at his own stand, and eventually went to his. We all thought that would be the end of the situation, and that we'd be able to continue our hunt without further issues, right? Wrong. About 5 minutes later, I saw the same man, this time without his wife, storming back in my direction, yelling, "Who do you think you are? There aren't any signs here, and we can walk here. As a matter of fact, do you even have permission to be in here? I'm going to call the police to see if you're even allowed to be here." I had been sitting down, but I started to feel nervous about what might happen if he continued approaching me. I stood up and shouldered my shotgun, not to threaten him, but in hopes that he would see it and keep his distance. I acted like I was ignoring him while still keeping a close eye on him. This happened about halfway through his rant. He took about 5 more steps before stopping, finishing his outburst, and then turning to walk away. I also used my radio to call my dad and let him know what was going on, but he didn't respond at the time. Later, when we regrouped, my dad asked me about the situation. He wanted to know exactly what had happened and if I had been scared. I told him honestly that, yes, I was. The man had come out of nowhere, shouting aggressively and demanding to know if I had permission to be on land that my dad owned. It was intimidating, and I wasn't sure how far he was willing to go. My dad looked at me and said, "Well, you have a shotgun. If he starts to get too close, use it to firmly tell him to keep his distance. He's not going to bother you again." It was one of those moments where I realized just how important it is to stay calm, alert, and ready to protect yourself while also staying within the law. My dad didn't mean to encourage violence, just that standing your ground can sometimes be enough to keep things from escalating further. Fortunately, the man didn't come back again, and we were able to continue our hunt without any more interruptions. Still, the whole situation stayed with me. It was a reminder of how entitled some people can be, and how quickly things can go sideways, even when you're doing everything by the book. It also showed me just how valuable it is to clearly mark your property, stay composed under pressure, and rely on your support system, whether it's your family, friends, or in this case, your pastor and your dad. I've never seen that man again, but every time I go back out to the stands, I make sure to double-check the signs and stay alert. You never know who might wander in and decide to make a scene. Story 4. I bought my house 3 years ago after saving up for what felt like forever. It's a modest place in a quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it's mine. The yard was pretty neglected when I moved in, especially this one corner that the previous owners had apparently given up on. It was patchy grass, weeds, and some sad-looking shrubs that were barely hanging on. I work in it, which means I spend most of my day staring at screens in an office with no windows. I'd always wanted to try gardening, but never had the space when I was renting apartments. So about 2 years ago, I decided to tackle that neglected corner and turn it into something useful. It wasn't easy at first. I had to clear out all the dead plants, improve the soil, and figure out what would actually grow in that spot. I started small with just some herbs and a couple of tomato plants, but slowly, season by season, I expanded it. Now I've got a nice 10x 10-foot plot with tomatoes, bell peppers, jalapenos, basil, oregano, and even some strawberry plants along the border. It's become my favorite part of the day, spending 20 or 30 minutes out there after work, watering, weeding, just checking on everything. There's something satisfying about watching things grow from tiny seeds into actual food you can eat. My coworkers think I'm nuts for getting excited about my first homegrown tomato, but I don't care. The garden sits right along the property line between my yard and what used to be an empty house. That changed about a month ago when Karen moved in. She's probably in her 40s, drives a white SUV, and has this golden retriever that she apparently thinks the whole world revolves around. We'd only said hi a couple times in passing. She seemed normal enough, maybe a little standoffish, but I figured she was just settling in. Boy, was I wrong. Last Saturday morning, I was having my coffee on the back porch when I heard my doorbell. I went around front, and there was Karen standing on my doorstep with her golden retriever right beside her, no leash in sight. She told me she needed me to do something about my garden. When I asked what she meant, she explained that her dog didn't like it. Every time he looked at it, he started barking like crazy. She said he didn't do that anywhere else and thought it might be the smell of my compost or just the way it looked. She asked if I could move it back a little so it was more hidden and he wouldn't see it. I just stared at her for a moment, trying to make sure I'd heard correctly. I suggested that maybe he would get used to it, but she insisted that wasn't good enough. She wanted me to move it to the back corner where it would be more hidden. I stood there trying to process whether this conversation was actually happening. This woman was seriously asking me to relocate 2 years of work because her dog didn't like looking at vegetables. I told her I wasn't going to move my garden because her dog barked at it, and that she needed to find a way to manage her dog instead. Her face changed completely. The fake politeness disappeared. She complained that the barking made everything uncomfortable and that he barked really loudly because of my garden. She said it was going to inconvenience other neighbors and asked if I wanted to cause problems in the neighborhood. I pointed out that her unleashed dog barking wasn't my problem, and that my garden had been there for 2 years, while she'd only moved in a month ago. She argued that it didn't matter and called me completely unreasonable. She said it was just a little garden that I could put anywhere, and that her dog's comfort mattered too. I repeated that her dog's comfort was her responsibility, not mine. She stood there glaring at me like I'd personally insulted her entire family. Finally, she said that was fine, but I shouldn't say she didn't try to handle this nicely. She turned around and stormed off, her dog trotting behind her. I figured that was the end of it. Maybe she'd put up a fence or keep her dog inside when it got worked up. I was wrong again. For the next few days, every time I went out to tend my garden, I could hear her dog going crazy from her backyard. And I mean crazy. Non-stop barking, howling, the works. But that wasn't my problem. I had tomatoes to water. Wednesday evening, I was out there picking some herbs for dinner when I heard Karen's back door slam. She came marching over to the property line and demanded that this had to stop. She pointed at her dog, who was indeed losing its mind, barking and jumping around like the vegetables were personally threatening him. She said to look how upset I was making him. I told her to take him inside or train him better. She argued that she shouldn't have to lock her dog up in his own yard because I was too selfish to move some plants. I shot back that I shouldn't have to rearrange my property because she couldn't control her pet. She told me that was fine, and that we'd see how I liked it when this affected the whole neighborhood. Thursday morning, I found a note in my mailbox from the Homeowners Association. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint about disruptive landscaping causing neighborhood disturbances. The note said they'd received reports about excessive noise and that I should contact them to discuss modifications to my yard. I called the HOA immediately and explained the situation. Turns out Karen had called them claiming my garden was somehow causing her dog to bark uncontrollably and disturbing everyone. She'd even gotten one other neighbor to sign onto the complaint, though they admitted they'd never actually heard the barking themselves. The HOA representative was pretty reasonable once I explained what was actually happening. They said they'd need to investigate further, but that I wasn't required to remove anything from my property just because a neighbor's pet didn't like it. Friday evening, I was out watering when Karen appeared again, this time with her dog on a leash. She said she hoped I was happy because she'd had to hire a dog trainer because of my stupid vegetables. I told her that was good, and that's what responsible pet owners do. She complained that this was costing her money that she shouldn't have to spend. I said that wasn't my concern. She warned me that I was going to regret being so stubborn about this. Saturday afternoon, I was replanting some lettuce that had bolted when I heard Karen's gate open. She came walking over with her dog, but this time the leash was slack and she wasn't really controlling him. She said she'd been thinking about our situation and had a proposal. I told her that unless it involved her managing her dog better, I wasn't interested. She offered to pay for half the cost of moving my garden, saying that seemed fair. I said no. She asked if I wasn't even willing to compromise. I explained that there was nothing to compromise on because this was my yard, my garden, and my property. That's when her dog suddenly lunged forward. The leash went completely slack in Karen's hand, and he came right at me. I put my hands up to protect myself, but he got me good on my forearm, breaking the skin. I yelled that her dog had just bitten me. She claimed he was just playing and that I probably scared him. I showed her the bite marks and the blood, insisting that he had bitten me. She dismissed it as barely anything and told me not to be so dramatic. I said I needed to clean the wound and she needed to get her dog under control. She insisted he'd never bitten anyone before and that I must have done something to provoke him. I pointed out that I was kneeling in my own garden planting lettuce. She suggested that maybe if I hadn't been so unreasonable about moving it, none of this would have happened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was actually blaming me for her dog attacking me. I told her to get off my property immediately. She said I didn't have to be so rude about it. I repeated that her dog had bitten me, and she was acting like it was my fault, and demanded that she leave. She finally left, but not before muttering something about how I was overreacting and how it was just a little nip. I went inside, cleaned the wound, and called the police. I wasn't taking any chances with a dog bite, and Karen's reaction made it clear she wasn't going to take responsibility. The officer who responded was very thorough. He took photos of the bite, got statements from both of us, and checked on the dog's vaccination records. Karen kept insisting it was an accident and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. The officer explained to Karen that any time a dog breaks skin, it's considered a bite. Given that this happened during a dispute over my garden, it was going to be investigated as a potential case of allowing a dangerous animal to run at large. Karen protested that her dog was dangerous, saying he was a golden retriever and they were family dogs. The officer replied that any dog could be dangerous if it wasn't properly controlled. I ended up having to go to urgent care for proper wound cleaning and a tetanus shot. The doctor said I was smart to report it immediately since any animal bite can lead to serious infection. 2 days later, I got a call from Animal Control. They'd completed their investigation and determined that Karen had failed to maintain proper control of her dog during the incident. Her dog was being classified as dangerous, and she was facing fines for allowing it to run at large and for the bite incident. But the real satisfaction came a week later when I got another call. This time it was from Karen's insurance company. Apparently, the animal control report and police documentation meant they were treating this as a liability claim. They wanted to settle quickly to avoid a lawsuit. I ended up getting a nice settlement that more than covered my medical expenses. But more importantly, Karen now has to keep her dog muzzled whenever it's outside, and she's required to carry special insurance for owning a dangerous animal. The best part, my garden is thriving better than ever. I used part of the settlement money to install a nice irrigation system and expand the herbs section. Karen's dog still barks sometimes, but now he has to do it from behind a 6-foot privacy fence that she had to install as part of her animal control agreement. I saw her at the mailbox yesterday, and she wouldn't even make eye contact. Some people never learn that their problems aren't everyone else's responsibility. Story 5. Maybe 10 years ago, I owned a tattoo shop that was located next door to a piercing shop. I had gone next door to watch the lobby for the piercer while they ran and grabbed some change. So Karen walks in, and I get why she thinks I work there. I'm sitting behind the counter. Karen, I was here last week and you screwed up my piercing. It's infected now and I need you to fix it. Me, I don't work here, I'm just... No, it was you. I remember your tattoos. Look. She proceeds to show me her navel piercing, swollen over the cheap crappy jewelry, obviously not from the upscale shop where I was currently at, and covered in yellow crust. Me. The piercer will be right back, he just went. No, you screwed it up, and now you're going to fix it. I'm not dealing with anyone else. They shouldn't have to fix your mistakes. I don't work here. I haven't done a piercing in years. I'm sure the piercer will be happy to. Are you calling me a liar? I remember you. I don't want some guy touching me. Mind you, the only piercers who worked there at the time were men. You need to help me, or I'm going to have to go to the hospital and have this thing surgically removed, and then I will have to sue you for my medical bills. Since I'm not a piercer, I don't know for sure, but that thing looks pretty gross. Maybe you should go to the hospital and get it checked out. I'm not going to the hospital, you're going to fix it. You screwed it up. I need this fixed today. Okay, fill out this form and we will see what can be done. I was tired of dealing with her. I just wanted her to stop talking. The piercing shop had a long release form that everyone has to fill out, so I gave her one of those to keep her busy till the piercer returned. While she was working on the form, the piercer returned. I explained that she was upset and had an issue with her navel, and then snuck out the back door to return to my much quieter tattoo shop. Maybe 10 minutes pass, and guess who walks into my shop? Karen. I want to get a tattoo done today. This lady acted like she had never seen me before. No mention of me being in the other shop or anything. Me. I'm sorry, I'm busy today. We are booked out for several months and not able to take any new clients for a while. I want proceeds to describe a fairly large and detailed tattoo. I can't recall what. I know how much tattoos cost, so I don't intend to overpay. There is no way I can tattoo you today, and I'm about to lock up for lunch. She goes through the gate that separates the lobby from the tattoo station, sits down on my massage table, and holds out $40. How long do you think this will take? Can I use your phone? I have to call my husband and tell him when I'll be home. In kind of a stern voice. I'm super non-confrontational, so this was weird for me. I say, "Ma'am, you have to leave. You are not getting tattooed here today. I am not taking new clients, and you've been kind of rude both here and next door, and I just plain don't want your business. Here." She holds out $40 again. You're not busy now, so I don't see what the problem is. How do you even stay open if you refuse to tattoo anyone? Here? Again with the $40. Kind of angry at this point, I tell her, we tattoo plenty of people, I just won't be tattooing you. You're demanding a $400 tattoo for $40 when I'm already booked, and you were rude to me next door. Please take your stuff. She had emptied half her purse on the table to show pics similar to the tattoo she wanted, and leave. I'm trying to get lunch before my next appointment. I don't mind waiting. I was totally annoyed and said it in a rude tone. I'm not tattooing you now or ever. Get your things and get out of my shop, and don't ever come in here again. At this point, I picked up her tattoo reference photos and shoved them back in her purse to hand to her. She switched to full-blown banshee. What the hell are you doing? Give me my purse. You're trying to rob me. Give me my damn money back, or I'll call the police. She carried on a bit more, but I can't recall what she said. So I walked to the door, opened it, and threw her purse outside. Me. Call whoever the hell you want, but you need to leave now. She practically leaped for the door, continuing to scream about her purse, the contents of which had spilled from me tossing it, and on her way out, she pushed me hard enough that I cut my shoulder on the corner of a vending machine in the lobby. I locked the door behind her, gathered my things, and left on foot out the back to get lunch at the bar a couple doors down. While I was at lunch, I was there for over an hour working on stuff on my laptop. I got a notification that someone had left a review. Guess who? It was the most insane and confusing review I ever read. My favorite parts were that I had secretly disclosed having hepatitis to her, and that her nephew was going to do an apprenticeship with us, but wouldn't after how she was treated. The rest of it was profanity and saying my shop was dirty, I'm a drug addict, etc. So I flagged it with Google and figured that was the end of that. My shop had a little enclosed patio at the front entrance with seating and a smoking area for clients, as well as a bunch of potted plants and decorations. When I returned, I found all but one of my pots broken, dirt and plants everywhere, a bench thrown halfway over the fence. The Christmas lights had been torn down. My gate had been kicked or pushed so hard it was sitting crooked on the hinges. My small window had been broken, one of the letters torn off my tattoo's sign, and my car was keyed. My car had a huge sticker for my shop, and my plate was T at 2NU, so it was obvious who to target. Not a little bit keyed either. This witch went crazy while keying my car. There was so much damage I couldn't believe she'd been able to do it in the hour or so I'd been gone. I was super bummed. No one had seen it happening because the mall door parking lot configuration was kind of weird. So I started crying. I was so bummed about my shop and the car and all of it. I'm really low-key and get stressed easily, and this was too much. I then called the police, canceled my next appointment, and went next door to visit while I waited for the cops. I found out the lady had been crazy rude to the piercer as well, and that he wound up kicking her out as well. She wanted him to replace the jewelry she'd gotten it pierced with at another shop with a $150 barbell for free, and became irate when he refused. So irate that she pushed all the flyers from their flyer table onto the ground as she left while cursing him out. So the cops showed up and took a report. It took me a while to fill everything out, and he took a photo of the cut I got from being pushed, and we showed him the video of her trashing the place. It didn't catch all of it, but enough. The cop was telling me that the report was pretty much just for insurance because we don't know who she is or how to find her when I remembered the release form. Part of their release form process was to take a photocopy of client ID cards on the form. They have a laminated form you just copy with the ID so it's all on one page. So that's what I'd done when I was trying to shut her up. We dug the release form out of the trash, and the cops then had her full name, recent address, which she'd written in because it was different than her ID card, phone number, etc. She lived not even a half-mile from the shop. So the cops drove to her house and arrested her. She got in trouble for all of it. By the time it was over, she had to serve several months in jail, and I assume a long time on probation, and I bet she had to attend classes. Just a guess. I don't know. I got a notification several months later letting me know she'd gotten out of jail, and I remember thinking, damn, she was in there a while. The following day, her husband called me to find out what the damages were so he could cover the costs. By the time I added it up, it was close to $500. I was kind of a jerk, and I taxed the hell out of them and quoted him as though I paid people top dollar to fix all the stuff I actually fixed myself, like replace and set up the plants, the fence, etc. He brought an envelope of cash in the day after I told him the cost. Or it may have even been that evening. It was weird. He was a nice acting, seemingly normal guy. He apologized and said she has a temper. This means this Karen could have afforded the jewelry she was trying to get for free and the tattoos she was trying to get for cheap. I assume anyways. Seems like he just had the money laying around since he came up with it so fast. But don't worry, none of this stopped Karen. After she got out of jail, for about a year, my shop would get these random super weird reviews from random Gmail accounts that had no other reviews. I have no proof it was her, but we never got bad reviews till this happened, and they were all written in the same way. They all just sounded like the same person wrote them. Some of my favorite highlights from the reviews: that I am a prostitute and operate that business out of the shop, that we reuse needles, that we did a misspelled tattoo, that I sell drugs from the shop, that you can find pictures of me online, that we tattooed a minor without a parent, that we allow had dogs in the shop, that we got shut down by the health department, and that I hire illegal immigrants. There was plenty of other stuff, and it was all pretty far out. That's just all I can remember. This lady would write paragraphs of weird nonsense every time, just rambling lunacy. I was in business for over 15 years. That was the only Karen I ever remember having to deal with. I'm sure there were a few other rude customers, but nothing like that. I wonder if she ever realized that she provided us with the information that made it super easy to track her down right after.